Rigs of Death Metal here. Gonna be talking guitars, riffs, all that fun stuff with Gruesome, also kind of Exhumed.
Exhumed some.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see who. Let's start with Matt here.
Hi, I'm Matt Harvey, guitar vocals for Gruesome and also for Exhumed.
I'm Sebastian Phillips. I play guitar for Noisem and Exhumed. I'm filling in for Gruesome today. And I also play drums in a band called Castle Freak. Who knew?
Nice.
All right.
Now they know.
Who knew before, though? That's the real question.
Well, first off, let's talk about Matt. What are you playing on this tour right now? I see the E2 Eclipse or E2 Arrow. Sorry.
Yeah, this is my main. I had for Exhumed we're in B. For everybody else, or all my other stuff, I'm in D. So this is my main D guitar. Just ESP E2 Arrow with the Mick Thompson, Seymour Duncan blackouts. I switched to Seymour Duncan. I just think they're lower noise, than the MGs. The higher output I didn't really do much for me. You can just turn up the fucking amp. But the fact that there was less noise and it just sounded, it just sounded a little cleaner, I thought was a big improvement. Sure. And I just use your standard Ernie Ball power slinkies. I'm actually out of all my cool picks that my buddy John Claypool makes for me in Florida, so I just have the regular standard Dunlop Green Tortex. I try to keep everything as simple as possible so that if you're in a random town and there's just, Billy Joe's fucking guitar emporium, you can get what you need. Because if you need some fancy custom gauge or some beveled pick or whatever, it could be a real problem.
Sure. Amp-wise, what are you kind of running through?
On this tour, just for the sake of convenience and logistics, I'm using Ken from Obituary's Kemper, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I think it sounds pretty good. It's just a lot easier than transporting an entire guitar rig from California to Florida because I live in California and the tour started in Florida. And he set up a channel for me that I think sounds pretty good. Sounds fairly valve statey, and the lead has a phaser on it like Chuck often used and stuff. So I'm fairly happy with it. It's not my rig. It's not anything against Kemper. It's just not what I would prefer.
Right. Do you have any of your sweet Michael Klein audio pedals with you?
I do. I brought them out to talk about my normal rig. So I guess I'll start with the simplest. This is the fake blood is from Exhumed. I shouldn't have said fake. Damn it! I blew it for the kids.
Occupational hazard.
Yeah, total.
Kayfabe broken.
So this is the ball gag. It's just a noise suppressor. I like it because, as I said before, I'm a bit dim. So this is just one knob. It's like how extreme do you want the cutout to be? I usually keep it about here. And then for Exhumed, this is my main distortion pedal, which is a Slimer. It's kind of in the Tube Screamer family. Sebastian can probably explain the difference a little bit better than I can.
From what Mike has told me, he kind of tunes the EQ section of each pedal for every person that he makes one for. So it's not like a standardized sort of thing. He'll call you on the phone and ask you what you use and what you want to sound like, and he'll send you a pedal and it's the best thing you've ever fucking heard. I don't know how he does it. It's literally magic in a box.
Yeah, the dude's a mad scientist, and I think the thing...
And nicest guy ever.
Right, total sweetheart.
Love you, Mike.
I think the thing that is really important with Exhumed is because we're in B as compared to all my other stuff that's in D, is that we need a lot of clear highs and high mids because the guitar is so low, you don't really need to do much to boost the low frequencies. So the only EQ knob I have here is a treble. And usually I just kind of put everything at about 1 o'clock. That's about
Straightforward.
it. Right. With the Gruesome stuff, it's a little bit more scooped in terms of the EQ section.
Oh.
Although I've used this and it sounds good for that too.
Nice.
And then, I guess, sorry Sebastian, I'm stealing your thunder here with this because we both have the same pedal. So this is the Lonely Ghost. Unfortunately, I'm not using it on this tour because of the Kemper, but I was using it in Mexico when we were playing down there before. This is it's a delay, reverb, and lead and boost in one pedal. You've got your boost volume here, noon is flat, and then obviously you could make it quieter if you wanted to. I don't know, but actually,
He modded yours?
yeah, he modded mine because we were using rented amps in South America, and some of the effects loops were causing the lead boost to be too high, and
Like,
so
crushingly loud.
yeah, so I was like, is there a way you can make it? Because I was like, why would you do that? And then I remembered. Yeah, so this is for tours where we're not using our own gear and we don't know what we're gonna get. So that's not like you don't want it to be that fucking crazy. I don't know. You can probably explain the controls better than I can.
Yeah, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward as the delay section of it. You pretty much just have like, you know, your blend control, your repeat function, and you know how many times it repeats. Simple delay shit. And I forget what the delay is that he based it off of, but the chipset is something like a TC electronic circuit or something like that.
okay.
I would believe that.
And then for the reverb section, similar sort of thing, that chipset is based on like an Alesis reverb. And it has a
nice.
little bit of modulation to it, which you
Yeah.
can really only tell at like super high volumes. So when you get it up there, like it almost sounds like a little bit of this underlying like VHS warble, like kind of lo-fi thing. But it's not like enough that it's like, oh, this is not gonna work.
Right.
It works in most every situation that I've found. And that's just, you know, again, mix, you know, tone, you can darken it, make it brighter, you know, whatever. And like how big the reverb feels with the dwell function. So that's like, you know, do you want to sound like you're in an arena or do you want to sound like a tiny little club? Something like that.
The dwell is one where I get myself in trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, it sounds awesome, and then you play with the whole band, and it's like, oh, fuck it.
Going for that
Yeah.
King Diamond, like
Right.
Abigail sound.
Everything's just dripping wet.
swimming.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the boost, just more loud. It's perfect. Send it into the effects loop. You're good to go.
Hell yeah. I was really considering getting one, so that's all good information to know.
Highly.
It's certainly like, at least for me, the best delay that I've ever used. And the only other thing that's kind of like that before, Tech 21 made the Boost DLA for a while, but they stopped making it. So like that was my idea for a pedal. It was like, you know, like, well, what would you think about doing something like this? And he was like, oh, okay, mind if I add reverb to it? I was like, yeah, of course.
I remember talking to him when he was working on the first one, and he's like, "So, like, how big do you want the reverb to go?" And I was like, I always forget the name of the song, but there's a song on the second Immolation album that starts with this just lone guitar, and it's like this real mournful, like Bob Vigna patented bendy guitar line.
Is that where the name?
And I was like, it sounds like a lonely ghost, like on top of a mountain, like in a snowstorm.
I didn't know.
And so, yeah.
Wow.
So that was my contribution.
So is that pretty much it on your board?
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing that I use for Gruesome is this old Maxon phaser, just because, you know, Chuck every once in a while has those like very phasery parts, like in Living Monstrosity and stuff, and you got to have a standalone phaser. And when I'm using my own amp, I usually just use a PV6505, and so I put the phaser and the Lonely Ghost in the effects loop. And then, like, when we did the spiritual healing shows in Florida in December, I just turned the phaser on, and then the, you know, reverb and delay, and it was like the little scaly bit. And then before the solo came in, I just turned off the phaser, and then I just left it alone until I needed the phaser again. That way, up front, I just have one button only to push, which I think is why I don't like the Kemper, because I'm like trying to like change the channel back, and I'm like, well, now I've gone into a completely different effects band. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
So.
I've got a Kemper, and I'm still kind of going through the growing pains of figuring it out. The remote helps a little.
It's super versatile, and I mean, I'm not, you know, a Kemper hater by any means. I just think for me, it's like when I'm singing, playing guitar, and then in between songs, I gotta talk to the audience, maybe like I like to tune, maybe wipe my face off with a towel, drink a beer. Then it's like fucking looking at this big spaceship with all these numbers and shit, like a little screen, like what? It's just a little bit too much for me, you know.
I had a really positive Kemper experience the first time I actually got to play through one. We were on tour with Rivers of Nile, and Brody and I were on the same side of the stage every night. I would always see his fridge up there, and I was like, yo, what's the deal with this thing? Like, mind if I check it out? He's like, yeah, I even have a PV Butcher setting. And at the time. I mean, I still do. I run a VTM 120,
Yeah.
which is just the Butcher with those switches. Turned them all off, and we're going through the same cabinet, mind you. So he pulls up his Butcher patch, and I'm like starting to tweak it. I noticed there's this like weird mid-range thing. He's like, "Oh yeah, have a global mid boost on." I was like, "Turn that off." And I adjusted the presence on his Mesa 5050 power amp. Tube power section, by the way.
Yeah.
So that makes a little bit of a difference. I was playing through that for a second. I was like, all right, quick, switch it to mine. It wasn't like scientific by any means, but it sounded and felt so identical that like even I couldn't tell. And I've been avoiding using digital stuff forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was insane. It made me understand it a little bit better. And maybe if I just had the time to sit down and tweak with it, and get some cool stuff out of it. But for $3,000,
Yeah, that's not an inconsiderable sum. I have really no issue with it sonically. I just feel like the operation of it, even just trying to do the simple stuff that I do, feels clunky on top of everything else. And it's like, I've designed my system to be like as minimal as possible. And then to like try and pull out of that mindset is a little bit difficult, you know?
Sure.
So it's not anything against the Kemper. It's more about me and my limitations.
We like it all, right? It's all fun. It all makes junja noises and
it's another
whittlies.
tool to make noise with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bring out your
Use it.
squeedlies and your whittlies and all your good stuff, man.
So, what are you running on this tour, man?
So for the guitar, this is the only thing that I have in D with a Floyd Rose on it. This is a Charvel SoCal. Actually,
Killer.
this is the one that I bought from Leon.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So when I got it, he had like the anodized gold pickguard on it,
Okay.
but it looked too steampunk for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go for like Granddad's Oldsmobile,
Nice.
you know. So like the tortoiseshell guard and everything else being wood, it just takes you back to like old station wagons.
Sure.
Yeah. Again, the Ernie Ball power slinkies, just what is it, 11 to 48.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and
It is 11:48.
I know my shit. There we go.
You can find it at like Walmart.
And I'm rocking the Trembucker version of the Seymour Duncan JB.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite pickup ever. Just drop and go and anything, and it sounds great. And just a stock Fender single coil for when I really need to play Jimi Hendrix licks.
I was gonna say, have
Right?
you used that once in Gruesome?
Never.
Or Exhumed?
No, I never do. This is for me at home.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
This is just Sebastian.
Yeah, it's just a pretty, bare bones guitar. Only one knob, not much to fuck with.
Right
And
on.
I like to keep it simple because if anything can go wrong, it will. And I want to be able to, troubleshoot it as fast as possible.
Absolutely.
But it's solid. Yeah, love this guitar.
Nice.
And then for the pedalboard, I run a very similar setup to Matt, except I don't use an amp for anything more than just a power section. So for this tour, I was using a Electro Harmonix 44 Magnum,
Yeah.
like the Nano power amp. But like something happened with the power supply, and it's like got to be bent a certain way to turn on. It's weird. So I borrowed Steve from 200 Stab Wounds backup PV trans tube, and I'm just going into the effects return, so bypassing all the preamp, going into
Right.
the power section. And so, it's, your basic tuner setup. It's really dirty Michael Klein pedals. This is, I believe this is like one of the prototype screamers. I was asking about
Yeah.
having one made, and he was like, "Oh, I don't have the new ones ready, but I'll send you this one." And then same with this. Like before, he had like the, well, he has the old one too, but like before they did the logo design on it and stuff, the little.
Oh, the
Yeah.
ball gag?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then the Evil Chunk. This is Matt's.
And mine.
Now I have the Potion Cellar usually, which is more of like a JCM 800 kind of
Yeah.
preamp style thing, and this is where all the sound comes from. This is more of like a more versatile valve state.
Okay.
Like the tone controls actually work, and the contour knob actually does stuff. Like
Right.
I could never make it sound any different when I actually had one. Like
Yeah.
I grew up playing a valve state, and with this, it sounds and feels the same. So, if it's easier to use and sounds a little better, it's better.
Yeah.
And then with the MXR thing, this is just an analog chorus. I have like the controls all jacked up just for like an extreme
Oh, I got you.
bordering on like flanger kind of thing,
Sure.
but subtle enough that it's not too annoying. I was gonna use it as like, you know, like that Pestilence guitar sound, like where it's
Yeah.
just chorusy the whole time.
yeah.
Even Death did that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Individual Thought Patterns has chorus.
Yeah, like everywhere. I was gonna do that, but it kind of just muddied everything up a little.
Oh, yeah.
And using it as like just a special effect is a little bit nicer. Kind of breaks it up in the set. And then the Lonely Ghost at the end of it to, you know, drive the solos a little louder.
Hell yeah.
Super simple. And typically, like when I'm out on tour with Exhumed, this is the same exact board except without that. And I run it into the effects return of my VTM 120.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's that.
So there's all the gear talk. Just have to ask, you guys are both extremely prolific as far as all your multiple bands that you guys go out with, both ones that you write for, and then, you know, like Living Monstrosity, and you know, playing the Death Tribute stuff. So, how do you guys kind of switch gears, going from one project to the next, either writing or maybe going out on tour or whatever?
Good question.
I mean, as far as the writing, you know, I kind of just, I've gotten to the point now, I guess, where if I think like, okay, I need to work on X project, I can usually at least get a couple songs done that I feel are pretty good, and then I need to maybe take a step back so I don't just keep being super repetitive. And then I can come back a couple weeks later and then come back to writing. You know, but it also just depends, like whatever sort of gathering momentum at the time, you know, like we're working on a bunch of Exhumed stuff, even if, like, we'll talk about like a tour we have in 6 months, we'll all get on the phone or on Zoom or whatever, we're all talking and all this stuff, we're gonna do this and this, and I'm writing down all this shit, and then I'll just go to the guitar and I'll just, oh shit, there's a new Exhumed riff, fuck, I better transcribe that. So it's just really about like momentum, and just like a lot of, you know, compartmentalizing and kind of realizing that like these riffs go in this box and these ideas go in that box, which I learned from reading comics as a kid, actually.
Oh, nice.
Because I was like, how come Batman and Wolverine can't fight each other? And it's like, no, Wolverine's over here in the Marvel bin, and then Batman's over here in the DC bin, and there the twain shall meet. So that was just I kind of got into that way of thinking, you know, and then it just translated into like doing different projects or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
For me, it's a little bit more of just like a drop in and go kind of
Yeah.
thing. Usually when I get home, like it's just a couple days of decompression, relaxing, and then just try to fill my schedule with whatever's coming next. And it's probably harder not just switching from bands, but switching from playing to recording, because I also record bands at home on the side. It's hard to go from like playing your own material and kind of getting into the groove and this momentum going like that, and then coming home and then working on a song that you've never heard before with an artist that you're not always familiar with and how they play, or you know, how they like to work and stuff like that. So that to me is a little bit more difficult, but once you get going in it, it all just comes back and it feels natural. And if you do it all enough, it's really easy. I know, right? It's really easy to just like find that groove again and, you know, get right back to it.
Right. So you guys have pretty much gone out on tour with a who's who of anybody in the metal scene. So
He has.
if there's anybody left that you guys would like to make up a dream tour to go out with, or maybe just people you enjoy touring with, who would it be?
We enjoy touring with most everybody that we tour with. I mean,
Yeah, we've gotten really lucky.
yeah, it's hard. I'm trying to think of bands that, you know, that I'm like dying to tour with, and it's just, you know, at this point it would be more like career type decisions. Like, oh, this would give us some exposure. You know, mostly I think for Exhumed and Gruesome really is we need more support tours in Europe. You know, both bands are sort of in a weird stage where we're like slightly too big for people to give us the money that we can earn as a support band, but we're not quite big enough to get great support all the time on our own tours, because people can go and pay, you know, they can go to bands that are a little bit bigger. So we're kind of either like at the bottom of the top tier or the top of the middle tier. I don't know exactly where. You know, and I know that's not like really like a fan perspective, but I mean, from a fan perspective, I mean, I don't know, it's tough. Most of the bands that I really care about, I've either seen a bunch or they don't exist anymore, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So,
Understandable.
yeah.
I've always wanted to tour with Exodus, and that almost happened a couple years ago. We were going to do Europe together, right?
Yeah, that was in talks before the pandemic.
Yeah. That would have been a dream come true, but we got to play that Oakland gig with them, and that was super fun. Yeah. They crushed it. Rick Hunolt came out and played a couple songs towards the end.
Hell yeah.
I never thought I would see the H Team, right?
Right.
So,
Best guitar duo in metal, period.
like, Metallica made me want to start playing, but Exodus made me want to start playing better. No shade, like, but yeah.
No, I get it. I think Jack White was what made me want to first start playing, and then I found Dimebag Daryl and like guys that were like really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to step it up. I think we'll kind of take the sound check as our cue to start wrapping this up. But Sebastian, Matt, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. Obituary, Gruesome, 200 Stab Wounds. If you can catch it on this tour, please do so. Thank you all.